A viewer asked me, what is your one watch that you want to review on your channel? And that's not a real easy question to answer. So I took the easy way out and gave him 10. Hey, there you are, and welcome to My Dude Watch. My name is Jason, and today we're talking about my review bucket list. We got 10 watches I would absolutely love to have here on the channel. You do not want to miss this. This is going to be fun. You know the deal. Grab a snack, pull up a chair, and let's talk watches. Before we walk this gauntlet that's ahead of us, let me show you what I'm wearing today. This is the Seastern Sub 600T. This is a comfortable diver, and I really like the angles on the case. I'll leave you a link in the description just in case you want to know more. All right, before we get started, just a quick note. These are not ranked. These are just 10 watches that I would love to get here on the channel. Let's get started. All right, here we go. Let's start with Ferrer. This is a brand I've admired for a long time, and if you ask me to name one of the very best microbrands in the world, Ferrer would absolutely be in that conversation. Every watch they release has this incredible sense of refinement. The proportions are excellent, the colors are tasteful without being over the top, and there's a confidence in their design language that I really do appreciate. They really don't need to shout to get your attention, they just build beautiful watches. Add in a Swiss movement with an outstanding reputation, and you've got a package that's hard to ignore. The Discovery Olive is one that keeps pulling me back in, and I would generally love to get one here on the channel. Not because I think it's perfect, but because I want to find out if Ferrer really is every bit as good as its reputation suggests. Now let's go from a colorful British design to one that its reputation is outstanding for quality and toughness. The next watch on my review bucket here comes from a brand called Clemens, and the watch, the Monroe. You know, every once in a while a watch comes along that doesn't need to be loud to get your attention. It doesn't need to have a wild dial or a crazy complication or some over-the-top design. Instead, it earns its reputation by getting the little things right. And that's what fascinates me about the Monroe. Everything I've read about this watch points to the same thing: the proportions, the case, the finishing, the bracelet, and just how refined the entire package feels on the wrist. In fact, I've heard more than one reviewer say it's one of those watches that exceeds expectations the moment you put it on. And that really caught my attention. Because let's be honest, it's easy to build a watch that's interesting. It's much harder to build one that's simply excellent. And that's why the Clemens Monroe is in this review bucket list. I want to find out if this is one of those watches that quietly earns your respect every single time you wear it. If it is, I think it deserves a place on My Dude Watch. I cannot tell you how many times people ask me to feature this next brand. And this masterpiece is Henry Archer, and if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you've probably heard me mention them before. Every time they release a new watch, I find myself taking a second look. They build a reputation for incredible dials, outstanding finishing, and offering a level of quality that makes you wonder how they keep the price where it is. The Verden GMT is one of those that really caught my attention. I think it strikes that perfect balance between being sporty enough for everyday wear and refined enough that it never feels out of place. What I'd really like to find out is whether the watch lives up to everything I've heard over the last couple of years. Because when a brand consistently earns praise from reviewers and owners alike, eventually you reach a point where you just have to experience it for yourself, and that's where I am with Henry Archer. I want to get the Verden GMT on the channel, really spend some time with it, and find out if it's every bit as impressive as its reputation says it is. This next watch comes from a brand called Laco. I've looked at a lot of pilot watches over the years, but if I'm finally going to experience a true Flieger, I want to start with one of the companies that help define what a Flieger actually is. That's what makes Laco so interesting to me. They don't have to borrow from history. They're part of it. The Augsburg is one that keeps pulling me back in. It's clean, incredibly legible, and everything about it feels purposeful. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's simply a pilot's watch done the way a pilot's watch should be done. What I'd really like to find out is whether you can actually feel the history once you have it on your wrist. Does knowing the story behind the brand change the ownership experience? Does it make you appreciate the watch just a little bit more? So what do you guys know about Panzera? I appreciate a watch that's willing to have its own identity. I don't mind a little inspiration here and there, but what really grabs my attention is a watch that you can recognize from across the room, and that's exactly how I feel about the Classico 43C. It has a cushion-shaped case, the layered dial, the bold styling, and it doesn't look like it's trying to blend into the crowd. It looks like Panzera sat down and said, let's build a watch that people will remember, and you gotta respect that. I've admired this watch for quite a while now, but pictures only tell part of the story. I want to see the finishing. I want to feel how it wears. I want to find out if all those bold design choices come together to create something that's just as enjoyable on the wrist as it is on the screen. At the end of the day, that's why we review watches, right? To find out if they live up to everything we hope they'd be. The next watch on the list comes from Wise, and this is their Adamascus. This is one of those brands I've heard about for years, but somehow I've never had a chance to experience for myself. Every time the conversation turns to hidden gems, somebody brings up Wise, and it's usually followed by the same comment. You really need to try this one. Well, I think you're right. The Adamascus is a watch that keeps drawing me in. The dial is unlike anything else out there, and from everything I've seen, the finishing is exceptional. But what really has my attention is the reputation. Owners don't just seem to like the watches, they seem to genuinely love them. And that's what always gets my attention, because when owners become passionate about a brand, there's always a reason. Maybe it's the quality, maybe it's the attention to detail, maybe it's something you just can't appreciate until it's on your wrist. This next watch is the Stratton Synchro MK2 mechanical chronograph. Now, this one grabbed my attention almost immediately, not because it reminded me of another watch, but because it didn't. The first thing you notice is the design. It's bold, colorful, and unapologetically inspired by the golden age of motorsports. It doesn't try to blend into the crowd, and honestly, I don't think it wants to, and you gotta like that. There's a lot of chronographs out there, but every now and then one comes along that has its own identity. To me, the Synchro MK2 is one of those watches. But what I'd really like to find out is whether it's more than just a great looking piece. Does it wear as well as it looks? Does the quality match to the design? And when the review is over, is it one of those watches you find yourself reaching for again? I think you all know this next brand. This is Laurier. Now, I don't know if there's a microbrand that's been recommended to me more than Laurier, except Henry Archer. It seems like every time the conversation turns to a great vintage-inspired watch, somebody says, have you looked at Laurier yet? The answer has always been, not yet. The Hyperion and the Olympian are the two models that really have my attention. There's just something about the way Laurier approaches designs. They don't always feel like they're trying to recreate the past. They feel like watches that could have been built back then and somehow found their way into today. What I'm really most curious about is whether they capture something that's hard to describe. You hear owners talk about the charm, the proportions, and the overall experience of wearing a Laurier. That's not something you can measure with a caliper or read on the spec sheet. It's something you have to experience. And we are moving right along. And the next watch on my review bucket list comes from the Cincinnati Watch Company and a watch they call the Desk Diver Professional. One of the things I really enjoy about this hobby is discovering smaller companies that are doing things really their own way. They're not trying to be the biggest brand in the room. They're just trying to build watches that they're proud of and that you can put on your wrist. But beyond the name, I really like what Cincinnati Watch Company is doing. This isn't a watch that's trying to copy somebody else's success. It feels like a brand that's carving out its own path, and I always appreciate that. What I'd really like to find out is this one of those watches that will surprise you. The kind where you expect it to be good and it ends up being great or even more than you imagined. This next watch is the Anders & Company AC Vulcan. Every once in a while I run across a watch that doesn't remind me of anything else. The Anders & Company AC2 Vulcan is one of those watches. It's elegant, incredibly thin, and the case shape is unlike anything I've reviewed. I'd really like to find out if it's just beautiful in photos or if it's every bit as impressive in person. You know, there's one thing I really appreciate about collecting watches, and that's when a brand takes a chance on its own design language. It would be easy to follow whatever's popular at the moment, but the Vulcan doesn't do that. It has its own identity, and I respect brands that are willing to build something distinctive instead of something familiar. If it's the finishing, the fit, and the overall wearing experience are as good as the design suggests, I think this could end up being one of those watches that quietly earns a permanent place in a collection. It's time to announce the winner of our Starking AM0603. Congratulations to @Griffin14. You've been with My Dude Watch since the very beginning, and I truly appreciate your support. Email me at info@mydudewatch.com for arrangements. And if Lady Luck didn't smile on you today, brush it off. You'll all have a chance again next week. Well, there you go. 10 incredible watches that I would love to have here on the channel to break down. Are there any of these watches that caught your eye, or is there something out there that you would like to see me break down that I didn't mention? Hey, you made it to the end of another video. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed what you saw today, please take the time to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It'll only take you a second, but it really does help. All right, we checked the time, and it is time to wrap it up, so we will close the show. My name is Jason with My Dude Watch. We'll do it all again next time, but wait, don't forget, dudes can't be late.